Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The Sejm is to vote on the dismissal of members of the State Commission for investigating Russian influence on Poland's security. Pursuant to the Act establishing the Commission, its members are appointed and dismissed by the Sejm. If, as announced, the parliamentary majority does not appoint new members, the Commission's work will be suspended. This means that it will de facto cease to function. Today, members of the Commission published a report summarising its work. With regard to the following people, Prime Minister Donald Tusk, Minister Jacek Ciechocki, Minister Bogdan Klich, Tomasz Siemionak and Bartłomiej Sienkiewicz, the committee recommends that they should not be entrusted with tasks, positions and public functions related to responsibility for state security. So, the entire group of the most important politicians of that time who were responsible for supervising the secret services. The Commission was established to investigate Russian influence on internal security and energy decisions in the year 2007 to 2022 and to identify threats from the Russian special services and recommend how to counter them. The Commission included Professor Sławomir Cienkiewicz and Professor Przemysław Żurawski-Welgrajewski. The Commission found that the thesis about Russian influence on the functioning of Polish counterintelligence was very probable. The opposition does not agree on the further functioning of the Commission. A few days ago, Boris Budka from Civic Platform argued that the Commission must be liquidated. Today, Włodzimierz Czarzasty from Nowa Lewicka announced that he will continue to work, but in a new team. If this Commission is dissolved, there will be understatements and suspicions that will remain in the public space. All the more so because all media information indicates that many politicians about whom we learned from the Reset series will return to public service. In the series Reset by Michał Rachon and Sławomir Cienkiewicz, a number of documents regarding Polish-Russian relations were revealed. This includes the content of the contract between the military counterintelligence service and the Russian FSB. It follows that the parties were to inform each other about the intelligence activities of third countries, which means that Poland was to inform Russia about the activities carried out by its allies in NATO. According to experts, this document is not the most shocking from the point of view of the entire Reset serial. Poland's foreign ministry is working on building a coalition of EU member states opposed to amendments to the bloc's treaties, the foreign minister said on Wednesday. Szymon Szynkowski-Welczek, who was sworn in as the new Polish foreign minister on Monday, told a press conference the creation of such a group was a key issue and that his ministry was conducting talks in a number of European capitals with this in mind. The minister went on to say that talks had shown that they were absolutely justified. There is a group of countries that opposes the project. That is why such consultations exist, to verify this view and encourage joint activity. I have the impression that not everywhere, even among like-minded countries, is aware of the importance of these changes, also among the public. The topic is not discussed, even if it is of fundamental importance, informing citizens in Poland and other countries, because we want a union strong through the strength of member states. Therefore, if citizens are to have an influence on public life, they should know what consequences the proposed changes will bring. Their voice will de facto be taken away through a series of European regulations. On the 22nd of November, the European Parliament adopted a resolution supporting proposed changes to the EU treaties, with the European Commission report on the issue to go to a European Council meeting on the 12th of December. Decisions on this matter are being made in the member states. Szynkowski-Welczek said, those who are forcing the decisions have seen in the European Parliament that the majority for these proposals is relatively small, but still the propositions passed. The foreign minister went on to describe the proposed amendments as harmful, threatening to Polish statehood, to the competences of the member states, to the independence of these states. He said that immediately after being sworn in, he had launched a series of visits to the capitals of European countries to hold consultations on these issues with our closest partners. On Tuesday, he met diplomats in Copenhagen, in Brussels, where a meeting was held of NATO member state foreign ministers, and in Prague. On Wednesday, Szynkowski-Welczek had visits planned to Vilnius and Riga, with further visits planned for subsequent days both by Szynkowski-Welczek and his deputy ministers. Since the 6th of November, Polish hauliers have been protesting at the border crossings with Ukraine, allowing only a few vehicles to pass each hour. The protesters are demanding, among other things, the introduction of commercial permits for Ukrainian companies to transport goods, excluding humanitarian aid and supplies for the Ukrainian army, the suspension of licenses for companies that were established after the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, and the liquidation of the so-called electronic queue on the Ukrainian side. Infrastructure Minister Alvin Gyadur met with protesters today. Our position on this issue of permits for Ukrainian carriers is clear, unchanging and firm. But as another gesture of goodwill, we will refrain from blocking 2 more border crossings, although such decisions have already been made. The point is for the Ukrainian side to consider what steps to take in connection with this situation. Another thing is that we have a meeting scheduled for the 4th of December in the European Union. We know that the Polish government and ministry, including Mr. Gyadur, requested the European Union to analyse the transport liberalisation agreement with Ukraine and the EU. We all know that it is unfair to European carriers. For many days, we have been calling on the Ukrainian government to disable the electronic queue system at least 2 border crossings. My predecessor, Minister Andrzej Adamczyk, asked the European Union to appoint a committee to analyse the effects of the EU-Ukraine agreement, under which the obligation to have permits for Ukrainians was suspended. This will also be the topic of the 4th of December discussion at the European Union Transport Council. The meeting will result in more intensified controls on access roads to border crossings that are blocked. In addition to Road Transport Inspectorate officers, representatives of the Border Guard, Customs and Police will take part in these inspections. Finland closed its last remaining border crossing with Russia after the government decided to seal the entire border with its eastern neighbour amid rising political tensions. The cabinet of Finnish Prime Minister Petteri Orpo decided to temporarily close the entire 1,340-kilometre border between the 2 countries a day earlier over concerns that Moscow was using migrants to destabilise the Nordic country in an alleged act of hybrid warfare. The Raja-Jooseppi crossing point in Finland's Arctic Lapland region, located some 250 kilometres from the northern Russian city of Murmansk, closed at 2 p.m. Wednesday according to the checkpoint's normal November schedule. Vila Atianen, a deputy commander with the Finnish Border Guard in Lapland, told reporters that the remote border crossing, located in the middle of rugged wilderness, was quiet during the 4 hours it remained open on Wednesday, with a handful of vehicles passing through on their way to and from Russia. The border cannot be crossed by foot. No migrants attempted to enter Finland in Raja-Jooseppi on Wednesday, he said. Finnish authorities say some 1,000 migrants without visas or valid documentation have arrived at the border since August, with more than 900 in November alone. Finland makes up a significant part of NATO's northeastern flank and acts as the European Union's external border in the north. The migrants hail from countries including Afghanistan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria and Yemen, and the vast majority of them have applied for asylum in Finland once they reach the Finnish side of the border, the authorities said. Finland accuses Russia of deliberately ushering migrants to the border zone that is normally heavily controlled by Russia's Federal Security Service, or FSB, on the Russian side. The formal closure of Finland's entire eastern border with Russia takes effect at midnight on Wednesday, but in practice, the Raja-Jooseppi crossing was the only point to remain open after the Finnish government closed several other crossing points earlier this month. The situation has escalated tensions between Helsinki and Moscow after decades of pragmatic friendly relations between the neighbouring countries. Those ties were broken by Finland's decision in May 2022 to join NATO, a direct result of Moscow's invasion of Ukraine that started in February 2022, and in consequence, Finland became NATO's 31st member in April this year. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.